You're listening to the Phatcast live from the studio with Colin Reynolds. Good afternoon. My name's Colin Reynolds and you're listening to the Phatcast. Actually, you're watching the Phatcast because we only do a video. Anyway, this week my special guest is the venerable, the reliable Danny Healy.
Reliable, I like that.
Reliable. I like to think of you as the most reliable of all of certainly Tassie's horn players.
That's just because I'm so, like, if I'm not on time, I can't sleep. So it's my own issues that make me reliable, no one else's.
Sure. Yeah. And the ubiquity of Danny. Like, there isn't a conversation about jazz in Tasmania that happens, you don't come up.
Yeah, for good or bad sometimes, it depends. But yeah.
Oh, you know, like you got to temper the praise with a little bit of
Oh yeah, you gotta have a bit of fire in there. Part of the fun.
Now we met Danny through the course of work. I a couple of years ago got a position doing audio out at the museum, and I'm to understand, before me, you did that job.
I was one of those for a little while. Yeah, I probably only did about 6 months of it, but yeah, it was really interesting to see the other side of it, and yeah.
Would you say that during that period that you were doing that, you made a lot of contacts within the music world?
No.
Wow.
I kind of already knew them because
Oh,
I
sure.
went from, I was helped out by the good people at Mona because I came back and I think I'd been overseas and I needed some work and
This was Vietnam you were returning from?
I think so. I'm really bad with dates, but I'm going to say yes, it was Vietnam. So I did 3 years overseas. In that stint, I did a year in China and then 2 in Vietnam. And then I came back and as is often the way, I was helped out by the good people at Mona and I ended up doing that job for about 6 months. But I kind of already knew,
Yep.
like there wasn't, like there were touring acts coming down, but I kind of knew most of them and I kind of knew most of the Hobart crew.
Sure.
So it was
Well, for starters, it is very jazz heavy. There's no question.
undeniably, yeah. It's there's tons of that down here at the moment, which is
And
which is
certainly
lovely.
through those circles, you've made all those friends.
Yeah. Like I kind of knew everybody, and everybody knew me,
Yeah.
which was really nice. Actually, it makes it easy and hard
For sure.
all at the same time.
For sure. Well, see, this is it. The closer you become to any person, but certainly work colleagues, and in the context of putting together a musical performance, you get more and more familiar with the eccentricities of the characters you're working with.
Undeniably, and all musicians have a little bit of something special in
A
them.
little bit, a little bit.
We're all geared towards the kind of autism-y spectrum in one way or another.
In some way.
It's like a magnet for jazz musicians. Yeah, in the best possible way. Like just eccentric is a nicer way of putting it than
I wonder if that's because jazz, among many things, but jazz in particular, is so content rich. You're not going to plumb the depths of jazz in a weekend. Like you,
Yeah. I think it's that little space that everybody finds their little bit of freedom, and those people whose minds work in a certain way where they need a certain amount of time alone to work out the world and
Yep.
to contemplate.
Yep.
I think, and just the way that it all works, it's mathematical and it's not mathematical, and it's just such a complex series of things that you've got to learn to master it. And I guess no one ever masters it. It's this
Sure.
feat that we're never going to, it's the mountain we can never get to the top of.
For real.
And if you do think you're at the top, well, then
You're wrong.
You got to head back down or keep looking up because there's a long way to go.
That's it. I mean, even if, in the philosophical sense, like Laplace's demon, like the idea that there's a theoretical computer that could theoretically know everything that's happening at once. Even with that, I have no idea where I was going with this, which is a regular feature of mine. I'll think of some great point and then I'll think, hang on a second, I can't just say that without a caveat.
I'm assuming what you're saying is that it's an endless journey, and even when you think you're there, you're not going to be there. Well, that's how I like to think
Absolutely.
of.
Absolutely.
Any music is an endless journey. It's infinite in how far you can go, and as soon as you settle and think you're there, well, then it's time to take a break.
That's it. I mean, look at artists like, say, Kurt Cobain, Nirvana, right?
Yeah.
So we've got a voice, not a particularly pitch-perfect voice, and predominantly two-finger guitar chords.
Yeah.
And with little more than that, there's this like a deep tapestry of textures and emotional movements, and essentially in the right hands, even the most meager musical tools can create,
Complexity isn't always what creates the greatness. I think it's honesty is what creates
Sure.
musical greatness when you can be playing over one chord or two notes or one note, and just you get that, you get the tingle in your skin and you get goosebumps. And,
Sure.
I think connecting with honesty with music is far more important than any technique or any educational path can put you on.
For sure. And I think that's, you're touching on something that musical maturity brings. For example, when we're young, we start listening to stuff and we want to emulate the stuff we're listening to because it seems so cool to us. And for example, in my case, it was Metallica and jumped straight to the lead solo, willy, 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 willy. And like that's the only thing I cared about for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And I call myself a party trick guitarist. Someone wouldn't know that I played that. Oh, you play, and then I would play a solo, and it's like, oh my god, this is so impressive, in my mind.
Yeah.
But musically, despite playing guitar for 2 years, I hadn't even taken a single step towards really understanding music, let alone music theory. Just not, oh, I play that chord, then play that chord. Why?
Yeah.
It wasn't until maybe even a decade later when I sort of was able to sit back and go, hang on a second, that solo sounds great, but why does it? It's not because there's 100 notes a second. It's because when it hits that G sharp, there's an E major under it that followed that A minor. And so that G sharp sounds fantastic right there.
Yeah.
And those kinds of things, that takes, decades and decades and decades to just kind of understand why certain notes sound so great in certain contexts.
For sure. And I think that overplaying thing, I think we have to do that to be on that journey.
Sure.
I still overplay, and I think it's an endorphin rush sometimes. We're geared to do it because I guess we want to impress people.
Oh, sure.
And
stretch ourselves.
There's so many reasons. But yeah, I think, once we can just become deadly honest as musicians, and I'm still looking for that. Everyone's still looking for that, sure. I think, but I think it's once we can find that dead honest space where we're creating something beautiful and not thinking about doing anything but creating music, creating art, having a conversation.
Right. On that subject, and just touching on the museum, you've got literally the mission right now, but a fascinating project going on at the museum where by hand, that's the name?
That is the name, yes.
Yes. Would you like to tell us a little bit about this project?
So, yeah, I mean, it's a composition project. So essentially, I'm writing tunes every day. At the moment, I'm averaging about 5 a day. Well, when I say at the moment, I'm on a break at the moment.
Yep.
But I go back in a little bit, and I average about 5 tunes a day. So I did a 2-month stint.
Yep.
And I think I did 151 tunes in 2 months.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm going for, quantity, not quality.
Yep.
That's the way to go. But and then a band comes
Same
in.
as my photography.
Yeah,
right?
No, you got to hit one eventually.
Right.
That's what I'm going for. Well, they reckon every great every composer has one great tune in them, and they reckon you got to write 1,000 tunes before you
get to one.
By the end of this stint, I'll be close to 1,000, so one of them will be okay.
Right.
But no, it's all just knowledge and whatever else. It's not a skill set. I'm not talented or anything of the sort. It's just knowing what you've got to do, and it's putting pen to paper. And by hand, yeah. So
by hand, no.
Yeah. Yeah. So essentially, I've never written a piece of music on a computer. I'm a purist and a Luddite all at the same time.
Sure.
So I refuse to do anything on computer because I like the romantic notion of pen to paper. I think
frankly, it's just a lot faster too. Just like bang, 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 get that idea straight down there.
For sure, and also just the music I grew up listening to, and the music that I still really gravitate to, it was all pen to paper. Or actually, some of the stuff I play is well before that. It was an oral tradition,
sure,
where it was sung or played. But most of what I listen to is it was from an era of the 50s, 40s or 50s,
yep.
And it was all done in the old school pen to paper manner, and I kind of love that.
Yeah. Now, so look, I have friends. Maybe you don't have so many.
No, I don't.
No, that's not what I'm saying. It's not. Who not super familiar with jazz? Like they know what jazz is. They might have watched Looney Tunes as a kid, so they have a small vocabulary there of jazz, etc. But someone that's just like it hasn't struck them yet. Where would you recommend a person like that starts? Can you? What's just like a killer piece? Like if you can't get around this piece, then you probably won't like the rest of old jazz.
For playing or for listening?
Oh, for listening to.
For listening. Oh, look, if you're gonna, it's a complicated one. I guess if you're going to talk modern jazz, the album everyone should own is Kind of Blue, Miles Davis.
Oh, sure.
But I actually think for everybody, for general people, jazz is a hard thing to grasp, and maybe they shouldn't, maybe they should, I don't know, but it's such a minority music now, and I think in a way we might have done that to ourselves musically, and I think sometimes the earlier music is easier to listen to. Like I play a lot of 1920s sort of stuff, and you can play at the dirtiest pub and you'll still get a few people listening to that music that had never listened to that music before, because
Sure.
it's good drinking music.
Yeah.
It really is. It's foot
Pardon
tapping.
the pun. It tends to have a great head.
Yeah, undeniably. So I guess early jazz is a place where it's and you're talking your early Louis Armstrong stuff, not the stuff geared towards television, but
Yeah.
the hot fives and hot sevens and stuff of the sort. There's something about that.
Oh, you've let it slip though, Louis Armstrong. There's the gateway drug. Like, obviously, why am I having a mental blank right now? What's the big song?
It could be age. It happens to me a lot. Yeah.
It's definitely that too.
Yeah.
I see trees. Of
All right.
green.
What a wonderful world.
Yes.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
What kind of joyless sack would not enjoy that song, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like, there's something really lovely about that, undeniably. But
So you can kind of go sideways from Louis' big fucking hits straight into his, a bit more experimental.
yeah. Well, by the time you got to What a Wonderful World, that was much later in the picture. Like Louis was an animal. Like, people don't realize how good a player he was. He was like, there's nothing he couldn't do. And I mean, Miles Davis was quoted as saying that there's nothing I can play that Louis didn't play 40 years before me.
Wow.
Or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing a little bit.
Yeah.
But, and he was dead right. Like, Louis did everything. He was such a great musician, and he was almost everyone knows who he was. Everyone knows he was great, but people forget how great he was.
Sure.
Just such a great musician.
I'm actually inspired to go and listen to some more bloody Louis Armstrong.
Yeah. That's There's nothing better than listening to the great recordings of Louis. He was just such a phenomenal musician.
Now, just circling back to composition for a minute.
Yep.
Now, I'm under the impression you must have a methodology that gets you from, okay, I do this, then I do this, then I do this, bang, now I've got a jazz song. Can you talk about your methodology?
I've got a couple of different methods of how I come to tunes, and it depends who I'm writing for sometimes. It depends what day it is sometimes, like how I'm feeling. And it depends on a few things. So the first way I'll come about it is the easiest way that I write is I'll think about chord progressions, and I'll start by putting down a chord progression on paper and then putting a melody to it.
Sure.
So, there's so many common chord progressions, and depending on who I'm writing for, like if I've got a killing swinging band, well, then I'm going to want to use progressions from the 50s kind of era. So you're straight ahead, 2-5-1 moving things that, just swing.
Yeah.
So I'll go that way. Another way I'll go is writing melody first.
Yeah.
So I'll just come up with a melodic fraction, and then I'll work out
Like you just think of something and then bang, there's the
put it on
melody
paper and let it go from there. So
Yeah.
I think the big thing is, well, for me anyway, is just forgetting where I am and taking the time to just put that pen to paper and let it do what it does no matter what.
Sure.
And, there's points where I put the pen to paper and I realise that I've stolen something from, I think I stole something from Eye of the Tiger the other day. And then, luckily, erasable pen's best thing ever. Erase it out and go back again. And I guess the most honest way I write is to sit down and write everything from scratch.
Yeah.
Just to do it all in one block. And yeah, it depends, again, who I'm writing for or how I'm feeling. Sometimes you just want meat and potatoes, and sometimes you want, like Wagyu and Kiffler,
Right.
just depending on how you want to approach it and what the vehicle is. And that's all compositions are, is vehicles. You don't want to take your Ferrari down the shops. You got your Daihatsu Charade for that,
Yep.
When you want milk, you don't. Yeah. It just depends on the job. And again, the job that I'm doing at the moment, I want things that are playable. Writing complex stuff when people are sight reading it,
Yeah.
it's a recipe for disaster.
Right.
I've already messed myself
No,
up
so
so
this
many
is
times.
this is a good piece of info here. So, firstly, yes, every day you've got session players who will sort of come in at the end of the day and going, right, here's our pieces of music, and they're like, bang, and it's like straight into it. Got to
Yeah.
be able to, like, very little or no rehearsal time.
Yeah, virtually none. Like I might sing them the melody or just very quickly point out the bits we've got to
Something tricky,
keep an eye on.
not expecting.
But yeah, we never play through it before we perform it.
Yep.
Ever. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's on the one hand. And now I'm very much an amateur, but I consider myself something of a composer, and the concept in my head of being able to compose something and then that same day have it come alive.
Yeah.
What an enviable, what an incredible experience.
This gig is unheard of, and I'm beyond thankful and beyond grateful and humbled, and it's something that'll change my life in one way or another.
Sure.
I think, yeah.
Well, like musically, are you, for example, using? Now you'll have your own idiosyncrasies.
Of course.
Yes. Now, have you found yourself like developing like new little things that you hadn't been using before? Has this given you,
Yeah, I mean, new little things are going to pop up, and you'll get on some little, you'll be on some road and have a good look around and realise you've got to turn back and go the other way. But I mean, I've always been not always, but most of my life I've been a really big writer. Like I guess I've got, I don't want to put a number on it, but I think I'd have probably 400 or 500 unplayed tunes.
Wow.
So there's been many periods of my life where I sit down and force myself to write a tune or two a day.
Yep.
And that adds up very quickly.
Perfect preparation for this gig.
Yeah, it just happened to be, but like again, I'd never go through my files and someone actually said that, oh man, you set, you could just go and grab.
Oh, just phone it in.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I couldn't do that. I'd feel like I was cheating myself.
For sure. Oh, for sure. It was just a waste of the opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, and that's
one facet of it.
That's the word, the opportunity. It's phenomenal, Yeah.
Well, yes, you now belong on a short list of 2 people with this project, and I mean, well, it has its own identity, but
Undeniably, yeah. I mean, the other way it's approached from the lovely person that I took over from, it's a much harder gig the way they're doing it. Having to approach it from a classical background.
I mean, he's a bit of a prodigy. I mean, it's not like you could just like pick a random user and say, do that.
Yeah. I've got a much easier job than he did, undeniably, and will when he comes back.
Still
a much easier job.
But don't downplay the sophistication required to do what you're actually doing.
Yeah, but I guess the easy thing is, I can easily pop out 5 tunes in a day, whereas
maybe
from the classical approach, a really big day's work might be 3 minutes of music.
Sure.
So my 5 tunes with a jazz band, I mean, they could last for days.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, what constitutes a tune now? For example, do you have like A section, B section, outro, or are they all different in there?
Look, there's certain rules within jazz as are followed, and everyone likes to break the rules a little bit. So, I mean, your most common things that are going to be written, obviously, your 12-bar forms for your blues.
Absolutely, yep.
Your AABA 32-bar forms,
Yep.
really straight ahead. And then you can veer either way from that. But, again, with this sight reading thing,
Right.
I've caught myself out more often than I've caught other people out by doing odd forms, and then you think that you know where you are in your body, and you have this or you don't look for a second. I like to think that I've got a really good memory for changes, so I like to think that I can memorise these tunes before I perform them, just the chordal progressions, if nothing else. and it's not nearly as good as I like to think.
Sure.
I can tell you that.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess you have to some extent, lean into cliches to help, to help those players like be able to play with confidence.
For sure,
You
there's
know.
you have to write within a language, and certain people I can write certain things for. Like one of the piano players I work with, her chordal knowledge is just phenomenal. So
Jensen?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, her chordal knowledge is spectacular. So I can basically put anything on a bit of paper, and she can voice lead it in the most beautiful way.
Oh, yep.
So, like, I know that I can write in a specific way for her, and I know with one of the other piano players I play with, he's just such a swinging guy. So I know I want to write.
Schultze.
Souls,
Yeah.
yeah. So I really want to write in a manner to take advantage of, just everything he does is swing.
So much.
He does everything
so
well.
much.
Like he plays but he just swings so hard that you can't stop tapping your foot. So I just want to hear him do that all
That's
the
just a
time.
natural extension of the swagger of the walk.
He's he's the man's man. He's the ladies' man. He's everything. Sulzy he's bacon. Like everything's better with Souls.
Right.
Undeniably. Yeah.
Absolutely. I had the real pleasure of seeing him jump up with Mitchell's reggae group. Or he hates the idea that they're labelled to a trumpet, but Boiler.
Yeah.
And Saul's jumped up with those guys, and that was phenomenal.
Yeah. No, he can do everything, and he's just such a good attitude. Like he's the guy
just a great guy.
He's the guy you want on your side no matter what. Like
I have a cool story about Sulzy. So sometimes I'll do this. I'll see something and I'll buy it thinking that's going to come in useful, and I maybe will not see that 3.5 to quarter inch connector for another 4 years, but then I'll need it. I'll go looking for it and I'll find it. Yes, and pat myself on the back for buying that. Anyway, I bought myself a DeWalt half-inch driver. 470 millinewtons of torque. This is a industrial pit crew strength.
Yeah.
Dugga.
Yeah.
Dugga. And I got to use it. Sulzy got a flat on the way up.
Yeah.
Mother pit crew to the rescue.
Nice, man.
Yeah, it was so great.
Yeah, no, he's a good dude. Really good dude. So many people in this town. Great musicians. Like, for the size of the town, it's really insane.
I think it has something to do with the size of the town too.
I think it's the way of life, and, there's a lot of...
perhaps slower pace.
Slower pace, sitting in traffic less. God only knows. I mean, the beauty, the natural beauty close to the city, it could be so many different things, but, they come out the woodwork here, it's... for the size of the place, there's a lot of phenomenal musicians, regardless of genre, and artists in general.
Yep.
And I think style of life, clean water, God only knows.
A great place to live, obviously.
Yeah, for sure.
Singular in its beauty.
Yeah.
Well, it's been fantastic to have you here, Danny.
It's been nice to be here.
And so, do you start back again on the Monday or the Friday?
I believe I start on the 24th.
The 24th.
And I haven't looked at a calendar for 2 weeks.
Indeed.
I think is that the Friday?
It's the 24th June.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a Friday.
Rightio. So 24th of June, go and see By Hand. Danny toils away all day in the museum for a performance at the end, at 4 p.m.
4 p.m, 45-minute performance on average, yeah.
Yeah, and you can see some fresh, off the press jazz written that day.
It's still warm, yeah.
Yeah. And I'll see you guys next week. Thank you.